What's up everyone, I'm Callum on Toast, and in today's video we're going to be taking a look at Shadow Sableye in the Open Great League to see whether or not it is worth the insane investment to build this Pokemon. Now, because I have a 0-14-14 Shadow Sableye, it is actually powered up all the way to level 50, and for a Shadow Pokemon that requires 360 XL candies and about 600 to 700,000 Stardust to power it all the way up and double move it. So it is not cheap whatsoever to build this Pokemon, and we're going to find out whether or not that was worthwhile. Now, of course, you guys already know that Purified Sableye is extremely strong in the Great League, arguably the best safe swap in the game, but we're going to see how the Shadow compares to it. Now, you will see straight away that we're not running it in the safe swap position, and that's because not having access to return does mean that it is not as safe a swap. So we're going to run it in the lead, that way we don't really care if we see a fairy or maybe like a Scrafty or something, because we can just swap out of that matchup. And of course, you'll notice we have two poison types there, nothing groundbreaking in terms of team building. Dark and poison types cover each other's weaknesses extremely well, so for my two poison types I've got Qwilfish and Salazzle. Maybe not the typical poison types you would expect to see in a team like this, but I think they are both very strong, very spammy, and can put in a ton of work against a lot of the meta. So with that being said, let's get into the question of the day. What is the most underrated Shadow Pokemon in the Open Great League? Let me know in the comment section below, and with that being said, let's get into the battles now. Alright, so going into the first battle here, we lead into a Medicham, so an extremely good lead for us, and actually all three Pokemon do fairly well up against Medicham, as we all do resist the counter damage. They're going to swap into a Galarian Stunfisk. This is a little bit tricky, but what I'm going to do here, go for a foul play. You see they're already into the yellow health, and that does mean that they're now in range for me to take out this Galarian Stunfisk with an Aqua Tail. We're going to swap here, and we will outpace them to the charge move. We take out the Galarian Stunfisk, and now we're in a pretty good position here, as this Medicham has no option but to go for a Psychic up against the Qwilfish. So we get to the back-to-back Aqua Tails here. We could be running Sludge Wave, so they do shield it up. We're going straight for the second Aqua Tail here. Just going to guarantee we get some nice damage onto this Medicham, and at this point, Qwilfish has done a pretty good job, so we're going to let it go down. They do go for the Psychic. It takes me out. At this point, this is just going to be an Ice Punch, and Ice Punch really doesn't do an awful lot of damage, certainly doesn't warrant a shield, and they're going to swap here into a Tentacruel, so they've got their own poison and water typing here, but we're going to go for another foul play up against the Tentacruel. We get the second shield, and now we're going to swap into the Salazzle here, and will we be able to get to a charge move before this Tentacruel gets to another Scald? Unfortunately, they lower my attack, but I barely get to a Dragon Pulse. It looks like it's a CMP tie. We take out the Tentacruel with the Dragon Pulse, and at this range, even with our debuffed attack, I will easily be able to get to a Poison Fang, and Poison Fang takes out the Medicham, and I'm able to take that game. So GG's to that opponent there. Into the next game, we lead into a Swampert. This is where we want to see it with this team, although if we don't see it in the lead, swapping into Qwilfish does often bait out a Swampert, so that is also quite nice because Salazzle wants absolutely nothing to do with Swampert. They're going to safe swap into a Skarmory, bit of a weird play there, because typically when you see a Swampert and Skarmory core, the safe swap is going to be a Sableye, but my opponent goes for a Brave Bird there, allowing me to fully incinerate, farm them down. I'm going to come out with 100 energy. We're going straight for the Dragon Pulse. We get a shield from this Swampert. We're barely not able to get to another Dragon Pulse. And you know what? I'm actually going to shield in this matchup. Go for the Dragon Pulse. I see that my switch clock is coming up. We go for it. It gets shielded. We're going to swap instantly into the Sableye. Go for the foul play. Foul play takes out the Swampert. They come in with their own Sableye, so very strange that they safe swapped into that Skarmory there, but we land the foul play. That does big damage. They're still 5 Shadow Claws away from a return. Foul play isn't going to be enough to take out the Qwilfish, so I'm easily able to outpace them to the charge move here. An Aqua Tail takes out the Sableye, and I'm able to take that game. So GG's to that opponent there. Into the next game, we lead into an Abomasnow. We have a few better answers here, so we're going to swap into the Qwilfish. Of course, we do resist all of the Ice type damage there, and the Grass type damage is neutral. We do bait out a Swampert, which is really nice because, as I said earlier, we do not want to see a Swampert with the Salazzle. And here we do get a first shield from the Swampert. They throw just before the next Aquatel, but I am going to shield this. I will win the CMP tie. They're just going to go straight for Hydro Cannons because these mud shots are really adding up. I'm already into the yellow health and they haven't even landed a charge move yet. We're just going to let this move go through. We did get the energy for the Aquatel, but I don't want to go down both shields. I'm actually going to let this charge move go through as well. It is just a Hydro Cannon, but that does massive damage, shadow on shadow. We're actually just going to let the next charge move go through. We're going to come in with Salazzle. They swap into Medicham, and now we're going to see Salazzle do an insane sweep here. As we go for a Poison Fang here, my opponent is going to throw just as I'm getting to the second Poison Fang. It is a Psychic, so we do correctly shield that up. I'm going to overfarm as much as possible before they get to the Ice Punch. Go for the Poison Fang. Poison Fang takes out the Medicham. We're going to throw straight away if it is the Abomasnow, which it is. They get one Powder Snow through, so they shouldn't be able to get to another charge move here, and I'm able to Incinerate, farm them down, get to another Poison Fang, and Poison Fang is going to easily be enough to take out the Swampert from this range, and I'm able to take that game. So GG's to that opponent there. Into the next game, we lead into a Talonflame. So we do have a Pokemon that very easily counters the Talonflame. So I'm going to swap into it. Of course, we have that Power Gem coverage nuke charge move that will do massive double super effective damage up against the Talonflame. But when shields are up, it's going to be difficult to land that move. So we swap into the Qwilfish here. Luckily, this Umbreon doesn't look like it's running Psychic, so we do tank that first move. We're going to go for an Ice Beam here, expecting my opponent to throw their energy pretty much straight away, but they overfarm, allowing me to get to an Aquatel. So that is really good for us, and we're going to swap into the Sableye here. Now, I didn't realize this at the time, but we actually get a Shadow Claw through and take out that Umbreon there. So do note that I wasn't aware that I actually got that move through. I shouldn't have got the move through. We're going to go for a Foul Play here. Of course, the Power Gem would take out the Talonflame, but because we're a Shadow, we're going to be threatening the shields anyway. My opponent goes for the Overfarm. We go for a CMP tie, but they actually just get a full Incinerate through, and they are able to shield up and farm me down. We're going to come in with Qwilfish here. My opponent blind throws a Brave Bird. It takes me out, but it lowers their defense. They're going to swap there. They might have another Brave Bird loaded now, but they swap out into the Medicham. We're going to go for a Poison Fang, and remember, I still thought they had an Umbreon with loaded energy in the back, so I'm going to play this probably quite different from how I would suggest you play it, because I'm going to go for the Undercharge on this Poison Fang and make sure I have two Poison Fangs loaded when I come out of this matchup. We're going for the first one here up against this Talonflame. Of course, this is going to take out the Talonflame, and they don't have an Umbreon, so I was like, okay, we made that overly complicated for no reason, but we were still able to take that game there. So I will take that. Into the next game, we lead into a Sableye purified version. We're probably not going to win CMP because of our stats. We've got 0, 14, 14. Purified Pokemon have to have 2 unless you trade them in the attack. So yeah, I just assume we will lose the CMP tie there. We're going to swap into Qwilfish, and my opponent comes in with a Nidoqueen. So that is a bit of a strange play there. We're going to be able to get to the second Aquatel on the CMP tie with this Earth Power if they decide to go for it. We get the shield from this Nidoqueen, and they do go for the Earth Power, so a really nice shield there. We're going to overfarm. Even from this range, Poison Fang would do quite a lot of damage to us, so I'm just going to make sure I take out this Nidoqueen. They come in with a Vigoroth, so this is going to be a bit tricky because, of course, now shields are down. If they can land a Bulldoze on my Salazzle, things are not going to look good. They go for a Body Slam, but we catch it onto the Sableye. But they come back in with their own Sableye, go for a Foul Play. That takes me out, and at this range, I just don't think 2 Incinerates plus a Poison Fang is going to be enough to take out the Sableye. So I come in with the Qwilfish here, go for an Ice Beam, make sure I take it out, but maybe I should have just gone for an Aquatel and forced the Sableye to throw energy into the Qwilfish, because now Vigoroth is going to be able to farm me down, and they will be able to get to a Bulldoze up against the Salazzle, and it's double super effective damage, so that easily one-shots me, and I do lose that game. So GG's to that opponent there. You see, we went 4-1 in that set. into the next battle here, we lead into a Trevenant. This is a good lead for us. They're going to swap into a Shadow Walrein, so we're going to swap into our Salazzle, and my opponent throws on the alignment, so this is an easy shield here. They do go for the Earthquake, so that is perfect. We're now already at 100 energy, so I'm going for the Poison Fang, and from this range, Poison Fang already takes out the Walrein. And now my opponent is going to come in with a Galarian Stunfisk. We could have Fire Blast here, so this might get a shield from my opponent, and it does. We could go for another Poison Fang, but I'm going to force my opponent to throw their energy because I don't want them to double shield and fully farm me down. So now I come in with Qwilfish. Of course, Aqua Tails would do more damage now I've debuffed their defense. They try to catch the move. I go for the Ice Beam. It lands. It nearly one-shots that Trevenant. We're going to come in with the Sableye. We get to a Foul Play before they throw their energy. Foul Play does get the final shield from my opponent, and at this point I think I can get to 2 Aqua Tails before they can get to a Rock Slide and an Earthquake, but my opponent baits me with a Rock Slide, and at this point we've Shadow Clawed, farmed them down into range where an Aqua Tail will be enough to take out this Galarian Stunfisk, and we should be able to take that game. So GG's to that opponent there. Into the next game here, we lead into a Galarian Stunfisk. Now a pretty common team composition, that is going around at the moment is Galarian Stunfisk in the lead with a double grass backline in Trevenant and Jumpluff. So we're going to shield up the first move here. It could be an Earthquake. They go straight for it, which is fine. We're going to go for another charge move here on the CMP tie. And at this point, I really don't care if they shield or not. They do decide to shield, but that is fine. I'm going to let this go through. And I know that my Salazzle is probably going to have a field day up against their backline if it is what I think it is. And they are going to come in with Trevenant, so this is looking to be pretty good for me. They're going to go for the Shadow Ball. We've built up to the back-to-back Poison Fangs. Actually, they go for a Seed Bomb bait. Doesn't really matter. They're not getting to another charge move. We get the first Poison Fang shielded. The second one will easily take them out. And if it is a Jumpluff in the back, which it is, this is going to be a very easy win for me. We're going for the Poison Fang straight away, and we've done so many Incinerates that now we only need one more Incinerate to get to the final Poison Fang, and this will easily take out the Jumpluff. And we take that game. So Salazzle absolutely sweeping a ton of teams here in the Open Great League. A bit of a core breaker. You don't often see fire types in the Great League, so it does make sense that a lot of teams aren't really prepared for them. Into the next game, we lead into a Jellicent, and they're also not swapping out. So I'm going to go for a Foul Play here. We get a shield from my opponent, and at this point, Shadow Ball would do huge damage, and I do correctly shield it there, so that is fine. I'm going to overfarm. My opponent goes for a Bubble Beam, so this will not take me out, and I'm really hoping I'm going to be able to Shadow Claw farm them down before the next Bubble Beam, and I am able to. They come in with a Talonflame. We are actually at 100 energy on the Sableye, so you already know that we're going to be in a pretty good position to go for a Power Gem and take them out. They're trying to Volt Switch, farm me down. I went for the Ice Beam there, knowing they probably won't shield it, and they do shield an Aqua Tail, and at this point, one Shadow Claw will easily be enough to take out this Alolan Raichu, and then we can just go for that Power Gem, and that will be double super effective damage up against this Talonflame. How much damage is this going to do? Of course, it one-shots the Talonflame, and I'm able to take that game. So GG's to that opponent there. Into the next game, we lead into a Medicham. My opponent is going to save swap into a Drapion. This is a bit tricky here, but we're going to let the first charge move go through and then swap out into the Qwilfish, and hopefully those Shadow Claws going through will put them into range where I will be able to take them out into Aqua Tails. The first one lands. You can see that a second one won't quite take them out, but maybe the Poison Stings adding up will be enough to get rid of this Drapion before they get to the next charge move. We go for the move here, and Aqua Tail barely doesn't take them out, and because they got the Poison Sting through, they're able to get to the charge move. So if I went for a CMP tie, which Qwilfish does win, then we would have been able to take out the Drapion and avoid using a shield. We're now going for an Ice Beam. My opponent doesn't shield, but I don't then get to an Aqua Tail there. So another mistake. Probably should have gone for the back-to-back Aqua Tails, because here we go for a Foul Play, and the Medicham barely survives that. So once again, we're taking an unnecessary charge move that we didn't need to take. They're going to swap into a Shadow Skuntank, so running a double Poison and dark backline, so once again the poison and dark typing really complement each other. We go for a Poison Fang, my opponent goes for a CMP tie, but I choose not to throw, so I get a full Incinerate through, and then I choose not to throw, but they're at the next charge move already. Crunch takes me out, and it's going to be a race with the fast move damage, but we simultaneously KO, and it is a tie. So GG's to that opponent there. I definitely made a handful of mistakes there, but well done to them for getting a tie out of a pretty bad situation. And into the final battle here, we lead into a Pelipper. We try to catch the charge move, they swap into a Galarian Stunfisk. We should be able to get to the back-to-back Aqua Tails here before they get to an Earthquake, and they are going to be able to tank both of these because Poison Sting does literally 1 damage. It's triple resisted by the ground and steel typing. We get baited with a Rock Slide, which is really unfortunate. We're now going to go for an Aqua Tail here, and at this point I'm definitely not going to commit both shields because we're not going to be able to farm them down. They go for the Earthquake, it takes out the Qwilfish. I'm going to come back in with the Sableye, farm them down. They're going to come back in with Pelipper. We can easily tank a Weather Ball, so we're going to let it go through. Go for the foul play here, and we're going to see if we can outpace this Pelipper to the next charge move. They go for the catch there, and it looks like I went for the charge move and I was refunded with my energy, but I don't think it matters too much because here we're in a pretty good position. Unfortunately, they land a Leaf Tornado and it does debuff my attack, but not to worry because I'm just going to respond by debuffing their defense, and still Leaf Tornado doesn't do an awful lot of damage. We're going to go for a Poison Fang. Poison Fang not going to do too much damage now. It has been debuffed, but I'm able to get to another Poison Fang before they can throw a charge move, and at this point we take out the Pelipper and I'm able to take that game. So that's going to be it for today's video. As you can see, Shadow Sableye looks to be very strong in that lead position. The bonus Shadow damage does really help it out. It gives it a lot more shield pressure, which is certainly needed in that lead position. And as well, if you want to take things to the 2 shield scenarios, you can often win those matchups because the Shadow Claw damage and the eventual foul play that you will land really does add up. Or if you have matchups against a Pokemon like Trevenant or Jellicent, you can just fully Shadow Claw farm them down, whereas with the purified version, the damage output just isn't quite enough and you will have to throw a charge move. So you will have noticed that we won quite a few leads in this video, but there wasn't a single match where we hard lost the lead. So that's the thing about Sableye, is that it has a ton of neutral matchups. It really doesn't hard lose to too many Pokemon other than the fairy types and maybe a few dark and normal types. Is pretty strong against everything else, and you did see in a few cases here in this video that we did soft lose the lead, but all that did was allow me to come in with Salazzle and pretty much sweep in the end game because Salazzle with an energy advantage with the main threat taken out really did do very well. I do also think there's a case to be made to run Shadow Sableye in the closing position because of course that Shadow bonus does mean it does hit harder and it gives it more closing capability than perhaps the regular or purified version. And of course it sounds weird because Sableye's main claim to fame is that it's a really strong safe swap, but I'm suggesting that the Shadow version is much stronger in the lead or as a closer. So at the end of the day, it all comes down to what you need for your team. I think it's a lot easier to incorporate the purified Sableye into a team because you can take a very strong core, for example the Swampert and Skarmory core, and just add purified Sableye as a safe swap and it's a very strong team. Whereas with the Shadow Sableye, you also need to find an appropriate safe swap for that team if you're going to run it in the lead or as the closer, and that might be a little harder to do. But if you have the right Pokemon that you think can be run as a safe swap, then I think Shadow Sableye as a lead or closer is going to be very strong as well. And one final thing I want to mention before you go building a Shadow Sableye is that I'm running a level 50 0-14-14 Sableye. And this is typically what you want to run with Pokemon in the Great or Ultra League, where there is a CP cap, because that does allow us to get the maximum stat product for that Pokemon, meaning it's going to be more bulky, but the thing is you're already sacrificing some of that bulk by running the Shadow variant, so actually it's going to be more beneficial in a lot of matchups to run a more attack weighted Shadow Sableye, so you can reach certain breakpoints with the Shadow Claw damage, allowing you to win certain matchups where you wouldn't with the stat product that I was running in this video. So with that being said, if you did enjoy today's video, make sure you leave a like, leave a comment letting me know, and as well don't forget to respond to the question of the day if you haven't done so already. And if you want to see see more content like this in the future, then make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on post notifications so that way you're notified whenever I upload a new video. And with that being said, let's get into the shoutouts from my previous video. So firstly, we've got Jasper0930 who says fire types. Surprisingly, fire types are actually extremely squishy and not many fire types have usable bulk. One of the other things that I think is kind of interesting about fire types is that they don't typically have very good coverage moves. When you think about the water typing, there are so many water types with ice or ground type coverage, meaning they can hit for super effective damage up against grass and electric types, the two types that deal super effective damage towards them. But for fire types, typically the only coverage move you're gonna have is gonna be Solar Beam, which is very unreliable because of course if you do land it, that will flip a matchup, but typically you're gonna see it get shielded, and as a save swap, fire types just aren't very strong because they do get hard punished by water types. And as well, if you think that there are no subtypings currently available for Great League Pokemon that do allow it to at least take neutral damage from the water typing, whereas there are so many water types that take neutral damage or even resisted damage from electric and grass types, so that is also another thing to take into account. Next, we've got Black Rayquaza PvP who just says rock. You don't really need to say too much about that. When you think about the rock typing, it's really only Bastiodon that stands out in the Open Great League. Otherwise, you're not going to see any other rock types in the open meta. Unfortunately, rock typing, very strong offensively but awful defensively, so you're going to see a lot of Pokemon that have rock type coverage moves but not a lot of rock type Pokemon themselves, just because that rock typing does really hinder them. And finally, we've got Andrew Richter who says bug, hands down, there are no meta relevant bug types. Araquanid isn't super viable anymore because Walrein got nerfed, which led to few Walrein and many Altaria. Another thing about the bug typing is that it's just resisted by so many different types that it makes it a very poor offensive typing Pokemon. So you might have a few Pokemon with a bug type move, but typically the bug typing you don't see even used as a coverage move because it's just not very good. So yeah, I think Pokemon intentionally made the bug typing weak, and unfortunately it just means that there aren't any meta relevant bug types. So with that being said, thank you all so much for watching today's video, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.